Good afternoon, everyone on Zoom. I just wanted to let you guys know that we are waiting for one more individual to complete quorum. He should be here shortly. Thank you for your patience. All right, Mr. Chair, whenever you're ready.
Hold on. Is this thing on? Cool.
Yeah.
All right, we got quorum. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to call the Ward 3 NAB meeting to order. Let's start with roll call.
Elia,
Here.
Emmanuel Gutierrez. Absent at this time. Marisela Gutierrez Rodriguez. Here. Gabriel Maya.
Here.
Thank you. Jennifer Simio. Absent at this time. Ryan Smith. Absent at this time. Alexander Woodard.
Present.
Thank you. Marie Rodriguez.
Present.
Thank you. Council Liaison, Councilmember Martinez. Perfect. And then myself, Staff Liaison Abby Mayorga. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum of the Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone, for being here. So we'll start with public comment. We do have a few people here in chambers, and it looks like a few people on Zoom. And so just a reminder, a person wishing to address the body can do so, and got to keep their comments limited to 3 minutes. If you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand if you want to talk, or if you're here, you can just go ahead and come up to the podium. We'll give everyone a minute if they'd like to make comment. All right, looks like with no comment, we'll move to approve today, April 4th, 2023's agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion approves. The agenda is good to go. So we'll start with our council report. Miguel, thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for having me again. I appreciate the opportunity again to be here with you all. I think in terms of updates, E,
Your mic might not be on, I'm not sure.
I might not
Oh,
be
there you go.
close enough
There
to
you
it. That's probably it. Hold on, I'm looking at my calendar for the date because I want to make sure I get that right for you. So with the assistance of the community liaison, Abby, we're coordinating community cleanup in the ward on May 13th. So I wanted to go ahead and flag that for you all. So if you wanted to put that on your calendars, May 13th will be our first community cleanup for Ward 3. That's the only announcement I had.
This is Ilya, for the record, where is it going to be exactly?
Great question. We're thinking about doing it at Trainer Middle School.
Correct. So Abby Mayorga, for the record, it'll be our first community cleanup at Trainer Middle School. More details to come. We plan to send out the Ward 3 newsletter with all the full details with time and everything. It should be from 9 to noon. And it'll have all the information needed. So Trainer, and that is May 13th, a Saturday, community cleanup. And it will have e-waste as well. So feel free to pass that message on to your neighbors.
Cool, thank you. And any questions for Councilman before we move on to staff report? Okay, Abby, do you have anything for us?
No, nothing at this time. Councilmember Martinez kind of touched base on what I wanted to go over. So thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our business items. Our first item today is our quarterly, I guess, report from the police from RPD. And looks like we have a representative here, so take it away.
Hello, it's been a while. Is this thing on? Doesn't sound like it, does it? That's right.
Sounds quiet.
I talk loud. So yeah, too much. Last time I was here, I don't know, maybe this is necessary for the online folks. Last time I was here, we kind of went over this stuff. This is kind of boring and no one really wants to hear me talk about percentages up and down. So I kind of picked the top 3, which were assaults, destruction of property, and then grand theft auto. And so I went through a bunch of the reports and kind of looking for a pattern so I can give everybody advice on what to do whatever preventative measures they can. And I didn't really see anything as far as a pattern in the destruction of property. There's a lot of vandalism, broken stuff, and it went from completely unknown. They just wake up, go outside, and car windows broken or a car's keyed or something like that, to probably a bad breakup kind of thing. And then they suspect that they're X, but there's no tangible proof for that. The batteries were similar, where there wasn't really anything. Some people fell down and felt like they got sucker punched, and then we reviewed surveillance the next day and nothing happened. And then other times people were pushed, or usually there was some intoxication at a bar and people got into some sort of push or punching match. So as far as the GTAs, the vehicle thefts, I went through a lot of those, and the overwhelming majority of these have people where they leave their car unlocked with the keys in it. So we have that both where they're warming up the car in the morning because it's still cold, even though we're well past what should be snow time. And so we just kind of want to remind everybody, if you do that, lock your car. It's actually illegal to leave it running and unoccupied. But also, even if you're in a hurry and you like run in the house just for a minute, sometimes that's enough. So don't leave your car keys in the car. Don't leave other car keys. Like if you have 3 cars, don't leave all your keys in one car and then leave that car unlocked, because then all 3 of your cars will probably go away. And that's kind of the big thing. I was asked, I think it was Abby asked me about some stats from our community affairs division, and then also our narcotics unit. So I got some stats from those guys that I was going to go over with you guys. Lieutenant Conley about this. And so in 2022, just as a comparison, there was 1,940 contacts of homeless folks, 64 enforcement actions, and a majority of those were cited into community court. So far year to date, and this is back in February, was 126 contacts with 14 enforcement actions. And then a lot of that stuff. So we hired park rangers. So the city got some park rangers, and so they're kind of dealing with more of the parks and the river front, the 350 feet between the river. So they're going to start taking over a lot of that enforcement stuff. They changed their hours. They were originally on like some banker hours, I think 8 to 5 or something like that. But they're going to come in a little earlier, I think starting at 5 a.m. And so they'll be there to catch the people that are there too early in the parks, and they can kind of offer resources and move them along. And then for the narcotics stuff, I don't know what you guys want as far as an overview. They just have kind of like amount of drugs seized with quantities and then money. And then they have year to date. So you guys want like a breakdown of all the drugs or just like top 3 or?
Dealer's pick.
All right. There's a lot of different kinds. So there was in 2022, so just kind of into your stats, there was 148 finalized investigations that culminated in 85 arrests. And then for the drug breakdown, this was just what was seized in them overall. And I'll just give you the pounds because grams are just a lot. But as far as heroin, 3.36 pounds, cocaine, 5.64 pounds, methamphetamine, 93.17 pounds, hallucinogens, and that could be, they have GHB, DMT, and some other, I don't know what they mean. I'm not a drug guy, but 1.8 pounds. And then fentanyl powder and pills collectively was 5.22 pounds, which is a lot. And I think that's why we have a lot of the overdose stuff we're seeing. And then they got, they seized $118,000 and change, 25 guns and 11 vehicles. So that was the end of year stats. And then as far as this year, 19 cases, 8 arrests, and then they're much less, but 0.2 pounds of heroin, 0.02 pounds of cocaine, just under 6 pounds of methamphetamines, and then 0.7 grams. So I guess someone had just a little bit of hallucinogens, and then still 0.7 pounds of fentanyl. And then I don't have looks like about $3,000 and 7 guns seized so far year to date. And this was just in February. They haven't compiled the statistics yet for March. I think the other ask was some gang stuff, but I think how it was worded to me, like they don't track statistics like that. And I think I talked about that last time, where a lot of things are difficult to say, yes, it's gang related, no, it isn't, but I'll field any questions you guys have about really exciting numbers or whatever else you have.
Yeah, this is Ilya Arbitman for the record. I do actually, I'm not sure, does RPD have like overdose statistics, or does that kind of go more through like fire department or paramedics and stuff?
Well, if they overdose and die, then that would go through the coroner's office or the medical examiner's office. If they just overdose, they get Narcan and whatever, like that's a medical call. So we wouldn't handle that. So REMSA or EMS fire would have that statistic. And I don't know if they track that or not.
Mhm.
But we only, and of the deaths, we just basically say natural, unnatural. So we don't really categorize those because the FBI UCR stats they don't need a specific breakdown. Like we said, this guy got killed, baseball bat, pushed out of a building, shot, stabbed, like it wouldn't matter, just be an unnatural death or a homicide.
And overdose would fall under that category? you
It
mean?
would be, well, it would be considered like a non-criminal death.
Mhm.
So not necessarily natural, but it's not a criminal related death.
Okay. Any questions? Yeah, I know Ilya Arbitman for the record. I feel like over, the past couple of years, we've been, I think, working, I guess, to try to see what other kinds of, information, we can get. And I know that it's statistics are just always going to be a little dry, but for myself and probably for the rest of the ward, I think, however we can get even hearing some of the drug info or, having similar comparison charts, things like that, might be just useful to know, seeing as at least between like meth and fentanyl, that's definitely something that
Yeah, and I
people are
can,
concerned
so
about.
all I have is kind of like it's just their tracking data because they're part of, it's HIDA and can't remember the I, but it's a drug trafficking, like we're on Interstate 80. And so,
Yeah.
drugs and money go back and forth and they kind of pass through. And so there's some grant funding related to that position. So they do a lot of seizures and stuff. So they might, do several deals and get small quantities and then like they get a car full and it's 10 pounds or something, so that, I think
Right.
that's where like the methamphetamines being 93 pounds, that's not all one, but that's not, half a pound a time either.
Mhm.
It's like just sporadic.
So you're just saying that out of context, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
It's hard. So the drug guys, and that's what's hard. So I talked to them. And so they're working right now, but for them to come here is generally like operationally prohibitive because they have to go do whatever it is they're doing. And so for them to like come and speak, then they can't do their
Yeah.
job. So they just give me the data and then I get to come here and I know a little bit about it. Never done that in my career. So it's not very exciting to wait to do a drug deal and then go arrest people to me. But
Okay, well-
as far as trends on the dope realm, I know just from watching deaths that we have had, I'd say probably in the last 6 weeks or so, there's been a lot of fentanyl overdoses, whether or not they result in the death. There have been kind of an uptick in that. And generally what happens is when they mix it, we just call it a hot batch, but it's varying strengths and the analog derivative of fentanyl, carfentanil, or whatever the other ones are, they vary in strength and potency. And so when they mix it, if they don't like cut it enough, then, a half pill could kill someone today. And then 3 pills might not do anything to someone tomorrow. It's just kind of the way it gets chopped.
Mm.
But we've noticed kind of an uptick in that with overdoses from the patrol level.
Okay,
Is that
Thanks.
format acceptable for you guys with kind of the big 3 and then what we can do to prevent it? And then I'll collect data if I can from the narcotics guys, if that's what you guys want to keep on the roster. And then any other info, if you just go through Abby, she'll email me and I'll get with those respective units and see what information I can bring and share.
yeah,
Does that work?
yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for people behind me? All right. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks. Okay, item B2. This one, I think, yeah, looks exciting. And I think we have it in our packet here. And is the presenter on Zoom, Abby? Cool. We'll turn it over to you, Jana.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jana Litz, Management Analyst for the record. I'm excited to talk to you
Oh,
about.
we can't hear you. Hold on
Oh,
one sec.
Dana, 1 second. We can't hear you on our end. Go ahead, Jana.
hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for having me tonight, Jana Litz, Management Analyst for the record. And I'll be talking to you a little bit about the Community Development Block Grant, also known as CDBG. I also have here with me in the room there, Carrie Kosky, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of the processes involved with the allocation of funds. Next slide. So what is CDBG? CDBG was created in 1974, and the purpose of the grant is to develop viable urban communities for low to moderate income individuals. That is those people that are making less than 80% of area median income. So the primary objectives are to provide decent housing, suitable living environments, and expanded economic opportunity using this grant. Next slide. So all activities that we do with this grant must meet a national objective. There are 3 national objectives. The first and main one is to benefit low and moderate income persons. The second one is to prevent or eliminate slums and blight. And the third one is meeting an urgent need. We usually use this grant for the benefit of low and moderate income persons. And there are 4 categories under that objective. The first one is an area benefit. So that would be updating a park that serves a certain area that is eligible because of the low to moderate income individuals that live there. The limited clientele category is a category of individuals that is generally presumed by HUD to be principally low and moderate income. So severely disabled persons, homeless persons fall under that category. And then there are also housing and job activities that can be done under that objective. We don't normally do slums and blight, but we have in the past. So that's just improving areas around the city that are affected by slums and blight. The urgent need category is something that poses a serious and immediate threat to the health or welfare of the community. Next slide. So let's talk about eligible activities that we can do under those national objectives. There are housing and other real property activities that can be done. So we can help a homeowner repair or rehab their home and make it more energy efficient, make it accessible, homeowner counseling, and rental rehabilitation. Next slide. Another category of eligible activities is public services. So as you can see, there are a ton of different activities that we can do under the public services category. One that we have done in the past is funding the operations of the homeless shelter. But there are a wide array of other ones that could be done if the subcommittee chose to do that. Next slide. So public facilities is the main category that we use our CDBG funds for. That can be acquisition, construction, rehab, infrastructure improvements, handicap accessibility improvements. Examples of some things that we do with CDBG under the public facilities and infrastructure category are playground replacements, audible pedestrian signals, pedestrian ramps. We put in an ADA bathroom at the Amtrak train station downtown. So there's a lot of different things that we do under that category. We can also use the funds for economic development, technical assistance to businesses, job training, things like that. So also planning and administration costs is one of the eligible activities under this grant. The Housing and Neighborhood Development Division is primarily funded by grant funds. So we can take 20% of the CDBG grant and use it to fund our staff that are running the program, and we do that. Next slide. So some of the activities that are not eligible with CDBG funds are improvements on government buildings, government expenses, and political activities. However, if we are improving accessibility to a government building, we can use CDBG funding for that. Next slide. So City of Reno is an entitlement community, which means that we are a city of a certain size and HUD gives us this funding automatically. We don't have to apply for it every year. And a part of us getting that grant is that we have to submit an annual action plan to HUD every year, letting them know what we're going to do with the funds. The process for deciding what we're going to do with the funds is that first the CDBG subcommittee decides which eligible project types to allocate the grant to and whether or not they're going to keep the money in-house, which is what we currently do. In November, we send out an internal interest application to other departments to see what projects they want to do with CDBG funding. Those projects then are reviewed by the Capital Improvement Plan Committee and the city manager for recommendations. The CDBG subcommittee then reviews those recommendations and makes a final recommendation to council as a whole as part of the annual action plan adoption, which is normally in May. And I've got Carrie Koski here, who's going to talk more about the capital improvement plan process.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Carrie Koski, your city engineer. Can I go ahead and forward? Okay. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about why CDBG funding is so important to this community and kind of how it works with our capital improvement plan. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the capital maintenance needs that we have. So bear with me. I'm going to kind of describe, a few minutes here about how we develop our capital improvement plan and why grants are so important to us. Our capital improvement plan is basically our blueprint for sustaining and improving the community's infrastructure. It starts out with big picture thinking. We look at the things that are important to the community, which are our focus of our council, and they've taken a very intentional approach as our community has grown. And they've got the focus on 6 of our strategic goals in the strategic plan, as I've shown here on the slide. The fiscal sustainability, your public safety, economic opportunity, homelessness and affordable housing, economic and community development, infrastructure, and arts and parks. So these strategic goals are basically the foundation for a capital improvement plan. When we took a look at our capital improvement needs this year, we've got some very high needs. Over to the right of the slide is basically the total needs broke down into the different facilities that we broke these into. So we've got about $182 million worth of capital maintenance needs. What we did is we broke that into 4 different categories. We got city buildings, we've got parks, parking lots, and then we lumped a lot of the things that just didn't fit into the other categories into the 4th category, which is just other assets. Arch, art, the Riverwalk, parking meters, downtown lighting, and so on and so forth. It's a pretty hefty lift. So there isn't a lot of money left over, and that's one reason why we look to CDBG funding for certain capital improvements. I talked about capital maintenance needs of 182 million. So the capital improvements would be new things like playground equipment, new sidewalks, new ped ramps, audible signals, and solar school flashing beacons. So those are our top priorities for the reason that I showed you, that we basically have a lot of needs. So we're looking at these 4 areas would be the highest priorities. Playground equipment. This is a picture of Miguel Rivera Park. As you can see, this playground equipment, like many other playgrounds, is in high need for replacement. The sidewalks and school zone flashers, the flashing beacons, those are a top priority of ours, and we've got about $5 million in needs right now to get new school flashers in all of our school areas. In our street rehab project this year, we've got, next year, we're going to be working in the Yorrie Avenue area. That's like in the center of the page there. And I apologize, that's not very clear, but we're doing a street rehabilitation on Yorrie from Mill Street to Vassar. That's the center exhibit. And then we're also doing the southern piece of Yorrie from Plum to Gentry. And in those areas, we've got 3 schools. We've got Echo Loader, Vaughn Middle School, and the Booth Elementary School. So we would be able to utilize those flashers in those areas. And last but not least, our audible signals are very important to our community. We got about 110 intersections that we need audible signal improvements. Each intersection is about $7,000 to $8,000, so it's close to $1 million of needs. So that kind of brings us to the timeline that Gina was talking about. We start the budget process early in March. Then we move through the selections, which is in March and April. We move those over to the city manager. We take that then to the CDBG subcommittee here in April, and then over to city council in May. And then it's adopted on May 16th. So that's kind of a real quick synopsis of how we get here. But CDBG is very important to us, and it enables us to get new things. So got any questions? That's it for me.
Yeah, this is Ilya Arberman for the record. So yeah, first a general question. So the things you described, all the CDBG money will be going towards those things, or is that just some of it is going to go there?
I'll let Gina, do you want to go ahead and answer that one?
Yes, I can answer that. So we take 20% off of the grant for administrative costs. And then each year the subcommittee can decide what kind of projects that it wants to do. So this current award that we're about to get, they have decided to put 30% of that towards workforce housing initiatives, and the rest is going to public facilities and infrastructure improvements.
Do we have any info about that other 30%?
We're working on a plan to be very intentional about how we spend that money, and we're going to be doing some public involvement. So that is still in the works.
Gina, for just for the record here, for the infrastructure that we're looking at about $1 million. Is that what we're thinking?
Correct.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Is this grant a one-time grant, or is it something that you would be able to apply again for in the future so that improvements can continue?
That's a good question. Thank you. We get that grant every year as an entitlement city, so we don't have to apply for it. And we've been getting it since the 80s. It's a very reliable grant, so we hope to keep getting it every year.
And we've got it several years in a row, and it really does help our infrastructure.
Yeah, Ilya Arberman for the record, just because I'm curious, I've heard about it before, but I didn't really know the specifics of the grant. Do you guys offhand know some examples of like other things in the past that the grant has been spent on specifically?
Sure. You want to take that, Gina?
Yep. So we have in the past used the grant for acquisition and rehab to help Ridge House with some of their projects. And we've used it for homeless shelter operations and public facilities and infrastructure, so parks improvements and things like that. I'm not sure, there's probably more back in history, but I've only been working on it for a few years, so.
You mean the Record Street shelter?
Yes,
Yes.
we funded operations at Record Street, and we also funded operations at the CARES campus. And we also used some of our pandemic funds that we got through this grant to help build the CARES campus.
This is Marcella for the record. Just out of curiosity, because my background is in disabilities and working with those individuals. Do you guys utilize other grants to fund ADA accessible sidewalks and repairs and rehabilitation in parks, or is it all funded through the CDBG?
I can answer that question. No, we do a lot of our improvements with our street fund in our right of way. So we have we've got a pretty healthy budget of about $19 million, but a lot of that goes to the street work. But whenever we're doing the street work, like this year, we're working up in the north, off of North Virginia. And I believe we're putting in about 3.5 miles of upgraded sidewalks, widened sidewalks, taking out the dips. So for the ADA community. So we do use our street fund as well. There are other transportation funds out there that we've been going after aggressively, because there just hasn't been a lot of funding until the last couple of years. So we are putting in for more and more.
And this is Marcella again for the record. The current parks that have been updated to be more accessible, have those been funded through this grant?
Some have, yes. So Paradise Park, I believe we used some ADA or some CDBG money. Just most recently, up in the North Valley, some of the parks up there. We do a lot of play equipment with the CDBG funds and other park improvements.
Any other questions up here, guys? I just had one more, just one thing that I kind of, this is Ilya Arberman for the record too. Yeah, I'm kind of curious if Reno has used this for rental rehabilitation, which is one of the eligible activities that I saw that looked just like something I hadn't heard about before. Do you, either of you know if this grant has ever been used for that?
Not that I'm aware of. We've had it for many, many years, so I could do some research and get back to you on that.
Yeah, it seems like that's one of the things in Reno in particular we're in dire need of, old rental buildings not really ever being maintained. So yeah, I was just curious, but yeah, if we see you guys again, maybe an update on that would be cool.
I think some of the ARPA funding was used for the rental assistance.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
All right, let's see. For our last I think these last two items probably will go together
Correct, Mr. Chair.
for Market Street, yeah. So we'll turn it over here. Where's Garrett? Not here
I
then?
am filling in for
All right.
Garrett today. Sorry.
No.
Aubrey Powell for the record. Just giving you guys an update on the Market Street abandonment and the corresponding development agreement. I think for most of you, you've heard presentations on this before, but it may be new for others. So. All right, so Dolan Dodge is seeking approval to abandon a portion of Market Street from Pittsky Lane to Redwood Place to allow for construction of a 40-bay service center building to kind of expand on that current Dolan Dodge dealership that they have. So this is, I'm sure most of you are aware, RTC is doing a pretty massive widening project to Mill Street, extending from, I think, Ryland all the way down to Gregg. And this was provided by them. And as you can see, our project is smack dab in the middle of their project. And so this is their plans for Mill Street, where our project is. I'm trying to see, is there a laser on this or no? Guess there's not. You can see where Golden Lane is. And I don't want to speak on behalf of RTC, but my understanding is they are planning on putting a signalized intersection there. Redwood Place will be realigned down, as you can see. So it will be the fourth leg of that intersection. And so Redwood Place, where it is now, will no longer be there. That would become part of the Dolan project. So this is just a conceptual rendering. This is not any sort of final plan or anything like that. But this is the conceptual rendering for the service center at Dolan Dodge. The plan kind of is it's eliminating the underutilized buildings and kind of revitalizing a lot of the vacant area that currently exists there. So this project is really reinvesting in an area that is high priority for infill and redevelopment on this Mill Street urban corridor. And I know that it shows up as two items on the agenda, the abandonment and the development agreement, but I am doing it as just one presentation. So a condition of approval for the abandonment project does require Dolan Dodge to enter into a development agreement with the city of Reno, really just to kind of put into terms or put into writing the terms and conditions by which the abandonment needs to occur. As I said, RTC is doing their Mill Street widening project. And so really the key terms of the development agreement are making sure that our project aligns with their project and both can be successfully completed. And we're not infringing on their project and vice versa. So we have what we call, they're kind of triggers is how we're referring to it. So prior to recording the development agreement, there are certain triggers that have to be met before Dole and Dodge can go and record this. This includes obviously both parties need to execute and sign it, but also RTC needs to have the final design for the project. This includes, several points, like I mentioned, the signalized intersection at Mill Street and Golden Lane, widening from 4 to 5 lanes. We met with RTC, I think in February, and at that time they were about 65% of the way through with finalizing the design. So they're still working on that on their end. One of the other triggers is RTC has to finalize all acquisitions for the Mill Street right of way, and all acquisitions necessary for that realignment of Redwood Place. And then the last thing is that section of Market Street between Kidsky and Redwood Place that we are seeking to abandon. We do recognize that that is critical right now for traffic circulation. I don't know how often any of you drive down Mill Street right there, but the traffic is crazy. And a lot of people do utilize that section of Market Street to kind of avoid the craziness, which does cause safety concerns for pedestrians. And there's kind of a blind spot there on Market Street. Regardless, that's still critical for RTC while they're completing this widening project and then getting that intersection up at Golden Lane. So we recognize that that's very important. So Dolan is granting a public access easement to the city to continue allowed public access and traffic circulation on that portion of Market Street until the project is completed, at which time the city of Reno would then relinquish that public access easement, and then Dolan would, that portion of Market Street would cease to exist and they would continue with their project. So those are the big triggers. It's very important for the city that we are working closely with RTC. It's important for us and RTC as well. So we are in communication with them, having meetings, making sure that their plans and our plans align and that we aren't going to cause any issues for them as they embark on this massive project. And then just questions.
This is Marcella for the record. From the time of being approved and recorded, what's the timeline for finalizing construction?
Great question. I feel like when we talked to RTC, and again, I don't want to speak, a lot of our timeline is very dependent on RTC's timeline because we cannot really truly abandon Market Street until they've finished their project. And I want to say it was end of 2025. This is a several year long project that, before we can do our part, as we're waiting for them to do their part. But that, again, I don't want to give a hard timeline because it is RTC's project that we're waiting on.
Maria Rodriguez for the record. I'm very familiar with this area. I know exactly where you're talking about. And like you said, it can get very congested at that intersection, especially during rush hour. Have you brought in the EMS agencies such as fire, medical, and police to see how they will be impacted? Because sometimes they need multiple access areas to get to an emergency.
So as far as on our project side, I can't say for sure that we have. I mean, I know that we still have city code and standards that we have to meet as we're building the service center. There has to be a fire lane there. All of those things will be done to code. I don't know what RTC has done as far as how the access is going to change. I know Redwood Place is being realigned. There's going to be new intersections. Mill Street's going to look different. So I don't know what they've done on our part, but we haven't engaged any sort of EMS or the Reno Police Department. We're not even quite there yet in the project process. This is just approval for the actual abandonment. But of course, anytime you build anything in the city, I mean, we all know there's a lot of red tape, a lot of codes and things like that. So everything will be to code, fire lanes, all of that.
Marcella again for the record. Last time you guys spoke, the gentleman, I can't remember his name.
Garrett.
Yeah. Mentioned that there was one business in that area. Is there a timeline for just notifying them that they have to relocate?
Everyone is aware. We do have tenants on that parcel of where the service center will be. I believe the last I heard, I think one tenant has already relocated. I know one tenant is is a painter for the Dolan company, so he will certainly be relocated to another Dolan property. The other tenants, I believe there's two more in the massage parlor combo building we have there on Mill Street. We are in communication with them and we will assist them in relocating. Dolan has numerous properties across town, so they have the option to relocate to a Dolan property, or if they choose to relocate to another property, that's up, obviously their choice, but everyone is very much aware, even between our project and RTC's. I mean, I know that they are working very closely with all the business owners because they require right-of-ways and all of those things. So this won't be a shock for anyone. Everyone is very well informed on this.
Alexander Woodard for the record. Last time we spoke with Garrett,
Mhm.
I asked him about the renewable energy idea on the plot. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe he said that there were plans originally and those plans were altered. And he would try and discuss with the relevant parties about getting that put on. And I was hoping you had an update on that.
I really wish I did. I have not heard that. So that is something that I will absolutely follow up with Garrett on. And we can get you an answer on that. I apologize for not having something for you today.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
Gabriel Maya for the record. So there won't be any changes to the gas station that's on the corner?
No, I know that there will be, again, the sidewalk is gonna change a little bit. So there are some right-of-way discussions with the city. And I know there is discussion about a billboard that we have there that would technically be in the right-of-way that will eventually, we will need to relocate. But the gas station itself, there are no plans for that gas station. As far as I'm aware, that gas station will remain there.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Billy Arman for the record. So no like demolition or work will take place until RTC finishes what they're doing, or how are you guys going to manage that?
So they may demo. I don't know for sure the demo schedule as far as whether they will. Like I said, we can't actually abandon Market Street until I think like 2025 at the earliest. It's a ways out. So, but I think the goal is to still relocate tenants sooner rather than later. And so maybe there will be some demolition of like the smaller buildings that are on that parcel, but Market Street itself will not be abandoned. It will exist as it does today until RTC completes their project.
Some of the concerns from the NAB, at least from our previous discussions, were more to do, I think, with the tenants, not so much with the street. And potentially with the bar too, that I'm not sure if they're going to be relocating or if the bar is just closing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think last time I think the owner is deciding what he wants to do. I think there are several owners that are within that area that I know that are affected, that are deciding what they're going to do. And it's not because of our project. It's also the RTC project is changing. Like I said, Redwood Place is going to be realigned. I know there's like a pool company there that changes things for them. The tenants, since hurry, but I think we also want to let them, they obviously are aware. So if the painter chooses to stay, I guess until the end of 2025, that would be a conversation between the Dolans and the painter. But we're also not in a hurry to move the tenants out. As you said, we're really waiting on RTC to do their project. So that these are still ongoing discussions, and I'm not sure of the timeline per tenant of when they will relocate. But it's not something where we're like, you have 30 days, we have time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just for us, and something we flagged for Garrett, was it would be great to have, once that process does start, it is a small parcel relatively, and there's only a few people obviously living on it, but it would be great to have an update on like this person was successfully relocated.
I know for sure one was successfully relocated. And like I said, the two in the who are in the massage parlor building, those are still ongoing, deciding where they would like to relocate to, whether it is another Dolan property. And then the painter is someone who's worked for the Dolan family for a very long time, as far as I know. So he will most likely relocate to another Dolan property, and will continue to work for Dolan and will be taken care of.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Just to make sure I'm reading the map correctly, it does look like Market Street will still be accessible off a Mill via Louise. Is that correct?
I believe that is the plan. Yeah. And there's going to be, again, like RTC's plans aren't final and our plans aren't final as far as what the final product is going to look like. But I know that there is some discussion about, you can kind of see, I can go back to, I guess the PowerPoint's not up there. You have it in front of you though, on the updated Dolan Dodge development plans. You can see there's almost going to be kind of what looks like a cul-de-sac at the end, where it would be kind of like a turnaround there on Market Street. So yeah, Market Street is still going to exist and be accessible. It's just that portion from Kidsgate to Redwood Place that is being abandoned.
Okay,
Anything else?
any more questions? Thanks so much, Aubrey.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. I think that's it for business items. Any announcements up here? And with no announcements, any future agenda item requests?
Yes, this is Marcella for the record. I know I asked this every meeting, so I will continue. I would love to hear from the mobile outreach safety team, the county's mobile team. They deal with mental health crises, anything that the police department feels like they would be better equipped. So I would love to hear from them and their stats and how they have impacted Ward 3.
Abby Mayorga for the record, just
Yes. Well, the most team, the county's like the umbrella, but each department kind of has their own. But I would love to hear from if the city's mobile outreach team is available, that would be fantastic. Or the county. Any of them can probably provide the stats. Thank you, Abby.
no problem.
Any other agenda requests? Okay, so do we have someone here for public comment?
Yes,
Great.
Mr. Chair, we do.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead, come on up to the podium and just remember public comment is limited to 3 minutes. I know you just missed the opening comment, so thanks for waiting through the meeting.
We're gonna set up the document camera, so it might take us just a second.
No problem.
Start your time until it's set up. I had to go old school.
That's what that thing is there for.
Sorry for them being black and white. Remote? Cool. All right, this should do it. I'm trying to try. Hi, Damian Cole. I live in Ward 1 across the street from Ward 3. This is concerning Ward 3. If you don't mind, I need to turn these around. So, lightning pace. I'm asking for a ADA compliant public easement between Sutro Street and the new police headquarters that's being built. Currently, there's a park back there. The city has forgotten that the park exists. It's no longer on the maps or the directory list. Right there's my bike. This is the only way to get down there. I'm asking, whoops, upside down. This is the park, this entire thing here. It's mixed use urban. Here's the new police headquarters site. Here's how the easement would look. It would go around the perimeter, approximately 10 feet. There's currently a fence 2 feet away from the sidewalk that's being constructed that's 8 feet tall. I asked, could you please push it back 8 feet so we can have an easement? Right this will be ADA compliant. This already exists. All we need is the easement to get to this. This is the bikeway / paveway. There's a park here. There's park benches. There's lighting. There's signing. I'm asking for 230 feet. I was denied for these 3 reasons. It would take 44% of the parking away. It will compromise security. It will create a public safety hazard. The parking lot is 71,000 square feet. I'm asking for 2,000. That's a 2.4% reduction. How could it reduce parking down by 41%? The current amount of fence around it for public safety, for compromising of security concerns, it's almost 2,000 feet. It's all public facing. And they're saying that it would compromise security by allowing people to be in this little area right here. There's a 2-foot jump from the current positioning of the fence from public access currently. if you put a easement through here, it would be a 10-foot jump instead of a 2-foot jump. This is my hand touching the top of the 8-foot pole as I stand on the sidewalk. It's not secure. They said, there's no park back there. I said, yeah, it's on the Washoe County assessor maps. Started looking through the history 50 years ago when the Greenbelt project was announced. It was a statewide multi-government project that basically it was a big deal throughout the 70s. I looked up all these different things. This was actually even a candidate issue for Ward 3 candidates at the time. Sorry for going so fast, but basically they were discussing this. Truckee River Greenbelt is recreational park. In other words, every single parcel, all the way from the edge of town on the east side, all the way over to Vista in Sparks is a park. Sparks zoned theirs as public facility. Unfortunately, Reno didn't do that. They listed most of theirs as mixed use urban. Even when the MGM Grand was created, they promised that part of that would be that. Anyway, so you get the point. 1981, when the Reno Gazette Journal building was being, oh, darn it. I have plenty of information. If anyone has any questions, I am available for comment afterward. But yeah, basically, there's even no smoking signs on the park. That doesn't exist. Anyway, we need ADA access to that park. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
I know we missed the future agenda thing, but I would actually be curious, Abby, who it is that kind of, yeah, or just makes, decisions around that, because I'm also on the One Truckee River Advisory Board, and that's something we've been talking about as far as the Tahoe Reno Bike Way between John Champion and Broadhead in general. So if we could get somebody in here to just, at least start the conversation about that, that part of the bike path is pretty sad, definitely. And it is definitely hard to access on a bike. You have to carry your bike down the stairs. So it's definitely prohibitive.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool, thank you. Any other public comment? I don't know if there's anyone on Zoom.
If you would like to give public comment on Zoom, please raise your hand now. None at this time, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for a great meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
This is Alexander Woodard for the record. I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
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 All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.